Alright, good evening, Titans. Hello and welcome to Chapter 12, Section 3. Here in Chapter 12, Section 3, we are going to teach the Pythagorean Theorem. So get those notes out, take a deep breath, and get ready to go for the Pythagorean Theorem. We're going to start this lesson off with a little bit of background information on the Pythagorean Theorem. The Pythagorean Theorem came from Pythagoras. This man lived in southern Italy during the 6th century BC. He was considered the first true mathematician. I know many of you think I was, but it was actually Pythagoras. He was the first true mathematician. He used mathematics as a means to understand the natural world. He was the first to teach that the earth was a sphere that revolves around the sun. So as you can tell, he was well ahead of his time, and he was a very smart man. Now, the Pythagorean theorem applies to right triangles. So we need you to understand what a right triangle is and the parts of a right triangle. A right triangle is called a right triangle because it contains a right angle, or a 90-degree angle. The longest side is what we call the hypotenuse, and we will call that side C in the Pythagorean theorem. The hypotenuse is always opposite of the 90-degree angle. The other two sides are called legs. We call those sides A and B in the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagoras developed a formula for finding the length of the sides of any right triangle. So right now it would be a good idea to pause the video and make a drawing that is very similar to the triangle that's given on this slide. Alright, what Pythagoras discovered was that for any right triangle, the sum of the areas of the two small squares is equal to the area of the larger. Meaning if you were to take the two legs and create a square with their sides, if you were to add those two areas together, it would equal the area that is created by the side of the hypotenuse. So that gives us the formula that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. In other words, leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. That's the Pythagorean theorem. So you want to put that in your notes, ladies and gentlemen. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Or in other words, leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. We have a real neat proof of this Pythagorean theorem that we will show you tomorrow in class. Unfortunately, this proof does not work on the video. But what we'll show you is that, in fact, the two smaller squares, when combined, do equal the larger square. So look forward to that tomorrow in class. The Pythagorean theorem has many far-reaching ramifications in other fields, such as the arts, as well as practical applications. The theorem is invaluable when computing distances between 2 points, such as in navigation and in land surveying. Another important application is in the design of ramps. Ramp designs for handicap accessible sites and for skateboard parks are very much in high demand these days. Alright, let's jump right into some of that application we were talking about. The first one we have here is a baseball problem. A baseball diamond, or softball diamond, is really just a square. We can use the Pythagorean theorem to find distances around a baseball diamond. Here in our first example for today, we have a baseball problem. The distance between consecutive bases in baseball is 90 feet. How far does a catcher have to throw the ball from home plate to second base? Well, to solve this problem, we can use the Pythagorean theorem, because if we draw a straight line from home plate to second base, we have created a right triangle. First base would have the right triangle on it, as you can see. It would have the 90-degree angle. So with our right triangle, the side opposite of the 90-degree would be the hypotenuse. And the base path between first and second and home to first would be the legs. Let's go ahead and talk about how to solve this then. Since we know that the hypotenuse is the distance from home to second, we're going to go ahead and call the hypotenuse the unknown. The legs are from home to first and from first to second. So we know that leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. So 90 squared plus 90 squared equals the unknown squared. So 90 squared plus 90 squared is 16,200, and that's equal to c squared. And then as we talked about in class today, how do we solve this equation? Well, we take the square root of both sides. So we're left with c is equal to 127.28 feet. Now, some people say, well, shouldn't it be plus or minus? Well, think about this, guys. Is it possible for there to be a negative distance from home to second? No. So the only acceptable answer is 127.28 feet. That's the Pythagorean Theorem in action. All right, let's look at another example. Here we have a ladder problem. A ladder leans against a second-story window of a house. If the ladder is 25 meters long and the base of the ladder is 7 meters from the house, how high is the window? Well, let's think about this. Okay, the ladder leans up against the house. Okay, if you look at this, that ladder creates a right triangle. Now, they told us that the ladder was 25 meters long, and we know that it's 7 meters from the house. So if I look at this correctly, I'm trying to find that missing distance there. So picture me up in a window. I'll draw a picture of myself here. I'm trying to draw biceps. It's kind of hard to do, but as most of you guys know, having me in class, I do have rather large biceps from a lot of lifting. I try to do about 1,000 curls a day. But anyways, let's get back to the problem here. With a ladder problem, a ladder leans against the window here. So what we're missing is a leg. So when we go ahead and we set up our Pythagorean theorem, we're going to have 7 squared plus x squared, or you could use b squared or a squared, it doesn't matter, is equal to your hypotenuse squared, which is 25 squared. So we all know that 7 squared is 49. So it'd be 49 plus x squared is equal to 25 squared. So then 25 squared would be 625 if you do that in your calculator. I'm running out of room here. So we would have 49 plus x squared is equal to 625. So then we would go ahead and subtract 49 from each side. So we'd have x squared equals 576. And then if we square root both sides, the square root of 576 is equal to 24. So the missing side would be 24 meters. Now I know I was a little bit messy on that last slide, so I've kind of worked it out here for you a little bit neater. The ladder problem here, we have a 25 meter ladder, it's 7 meters from the house, and then we'd go ahead and do 7 squared plus an unknown squared equals 25 squared. We'd subtract the 49, then we'd square root both sides, and we would get that answer of 24 meters. This is the lesson for the Pythagorean theorem. Just remember, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, or in other words, leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. Have that in your notes and come ready to go tomorrow in class, and we can get to work with the Pythagorean theorem. Have a great night. Thanks for tuning in.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.